What kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be a person who takes action or do you want to be a person who stays stuck? Hi, I'm Kerry Siggins, and we are reflecting forward today. And we're going to talk about how to take action even when you don't feel like it. Let's face it, a lot of times there's days, months, weeks, years where you just can't muster the motivation to get something started, whether that is something big or whether that's something small. And you are not alone. I think that almost everybody on this planet is procrastinating on something right now and they're looking for the motivation to create that action. But here is the secret: motivation doesn't create action, action creates motivation. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. Motivation does not create action, action creates motivation. You have to act. You have to take action, even when you don't feel like it. If you want to take those small steps that create the big changes, the big impact in your life. So, today I'm going to share 3 powerful science backed secrets to help you take action even when you don't feel like it. And these strategies have been used by top performers, by productivity experts, by psychologists, and by yours truly. And the best part is that they're simple, they're actionable, and they might just surprise you. The reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I'm really feeling it. I'm working on my second book, and I promised my publisher that I would have the manuscript done by the end of February. And here it is, the end of March, and it is not done yet. I haven't worked on it for a couple of months. And I said, I have to get this done. It's so close. Just get it done, Kerry. But I am procrastinating. I am putting all of these other things that I want to do in front of just sitting down and writing my book. I just don't want to do it. But here's the thing. I know how good it feels when you get the book off to the publisher because I did it a couple of years ago when I wrote my first book. And it was not easy. It took me 8 months to write the book. I had to sit down on weekends and write it in long chunks because I'm not the kind of person who can say, okay, I'm just going to write 500 words. But what really got me, what really added the time was editing. In fact, I had to leave town. I had to go to Prairie Dunes Golf Course, which is in Hutchinson, Kansas, the middle of nowhere. While my family golfed, I sat at the pool and I went through all of the changes and suggestions my editor made to make the final edits of the book. And I had the manuscript with her edits for 3 months before I found the motivation to sit down and do it. And I realized it was because I just didn't take action. It took me leaving town, going to some place that I wasn't going to do my daily routine, like at a golf course, and just get it done. I sat there for, I think, 3 days and went through all of the edits and made the changes and put more research in my book. And I got it done. And when I sent it off, I was like, yes, this is so amazing. It was such a positive outcome. And then my book started moving and I had a date, and boom, October 2023, my book is out to the world. So I wanted to do this podcast as a way to hold myself accountable for just sitting down and getting the book done. And I know that this is not uncommon. We all face these struggles: procrastination, resistance, emotional fatigue. When we let these things hold us back, we don't achieve the things that we want to achieve in life. And the secret to getting things done is taking action. You cannot do anything unless you take action. And the key message of this podcast today is that waiting for motivation is a trap. I think that this David Goggins quote sums it up so well. You do not have to feel good to get going. You have to get going to feel good. And I love that because that's definitely how I felt when I was working on my book and I just sat down and got it done. It's how I feel anytime that I do the things that I need to do to achieve a goal, to feel productive. You don't have to feel good to get going. You have to get going to feel good. So let's dive into why action is so important. First, momentum breeds motivation. It's Newton's first law applied to life. An object in motion stays in motion. So if you take action every single day, it's going to be so much easier to continue taking action. I do this with my workouts. I'm so disciplined. I get up every morning and I have a routine and I do it every single morning. And because I have that routine and because I stay in momentum with my workouts, it has become a habit and I do it every day. An object in motion stays in motion. And so that's why this whole like starting and stopping of writing a book is so freaking impossible, because if you don't have momentum it's going to be hard to have the motivation to keep going. That's why small actionable steps are so important every day. You do not have to sit down and do this big, huge push and be like, oh, got it done. In fact, that makes it harder. Consistency is key. In fact, I think consistency is one of the most underrated leadership, whether that's leadership of people or whether that's self leadership traits that we have. Consistent action matters. It doesn't have to be big, it can be small. An object in motion stays in motion. Another reason why action is so important is that progress boosts confidence. Even the tiniest little accomplishments release dopamine. And you know how we've talked about dopamine. If you haven't listened to my Why You Should Do Hard Things podcast, I talk about dopamine extensively and how it works and why it's so important to helping you feel better if you get your dopamine in a healthy way. When you make progress on a goal, you are working for your dopamine, which means that you get it in the way that the brain was actually wired to release dopamine, and that is when you work for it. So even those tiny accomplishments, those things can make you feel better. It helps you find that momentum. And it helps you realize that you can actually achieve your goal, that you can move forward, that you can get it done. Progress boosts confidence. That's why you need to take action. Finally, action breaks the overthinking loop. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. And I am so feeling this with my book because I haven't worked on it for 2 months. Every weekend I say I'm going to do it and then I don't because I get busy doing other things. And then I'm like, ugh, okay, another weekend shot. And then I think about it and then I'm like, I didn't work on it in the last couple weekends. It can wait. It's fine. And now here I am going like, dang it. I promised my publisher I would have it by the end of February. And here it is the end of March. And I really have realized that the longer I'm waiting, the harder it is for me to get started. This is especially true when you're trying to make different changes in your life, like exercise. I was just talking to a friend of mine who was healing from some emotional trauma. And she's like, I'm just going to get back to the gym once I get through this. And I get it. She's got emotional fatigue. And it's so hard to find the motivation to get back into the gym. She said, but I know the longer I wait, the harder it's going to be. And I was like, exactly. You sit there, you think about what you want to do, you think about the goal that you want to achieve, you beat yourself up for not taking action, and then you can let yourself off of the hook because you haven't taken action for so long. I haven't been to the gym for 3 months. Why go to the gym now? I haven't worked on my book for 2 months. What's another weekend? I haven't addressed this issue with this employee. What's another week that goes by? We let ourselves off the hook. Action is really important because it stops you from overthinking and it helps you find that motivation and it helps you get that momentum and it helps you boost confidence when you even get the tiniest little accomplishments. The key takeaway from all of this is that the smallest step forward is infinitely better than standing still. That's why action is so important. Now let's dive into the 3 science-backed secrets to motivate yourself to take action. The first one is the 5-minute rule. And the concept around this is commit to just 5 minutes of action and nothing more. 5 minutes, that's it. This technique is widely used in productivity science and it lowers the mental barriers to starting. It's similar to Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. I love Mel Robbins. I want her to come on my podcast. I'm going to try to get that to happen. And her 5-second rule is her tips for how to push past hesitation. If you just get over that first 5 seconds, you can do anything. This one is a little bit longer. It's taking just 5 minutes to go for that walk, taking 5 minutes to work on that keynote speech, take that 5 minutes to write down the difficult feedback that you need to give one of your employees. If you commit to just 5 minutes and nothing more, you feel like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I just implemented this today. I said, I am going to work on my book for 5 minutes. That's it. And before I knew it, 30 minutes was in. I was in the flow. I wrote for an hour. And then I stopped and I said, I am going to record a podcast on this because it worked. I got some stuff done. And I'm so motivated that after I make dinner tonight, I'm going to come back and work on my book for another hour. That's such an easy way for you to get started. What can you do for 5 minutes to take action? That's it. It doesn't have to be a huge commitment. And psychologists refer to this as behavioral activation. Taking even a small step reduces resistance and increases that follow through. I'm going to come back and write for an hour tonight. So the next time you're stuck, set a timer for 5 minutes and just start. The second secret is the why power method. And this is around setting emotionally driven goals. The concept is that motivation comes from a compelling reason behind your action, your why. I love Simon Sinek. I just read his book, Start with Why. And in the book, he explains that purpose driven actions are far more sustainable because they're more meaningful to us. So when you connect an action to a deeper reason, it feels so much more meaningful. Instead of thinking, I have to work out today, reframe it as I want to be strong and energized for my family, or I really have to get this project done at work. Reframe it to when I get this project done at work, I'm going to turn it into my boss early and I'm going to feel better about myself. When you reframe it with the why you're doing it, I get to go do this. I get to feel like this. I get to shine. I get to solve this tough problem. That is energizing for you. And studies show that intrinsic motivation, which is doing something because it aligns with your values, leads to higher persistence than external motivation, doing something for just a reward. So, whenever you're looking at something that you need to do, but you don't really feel like doing it, dig for that intrinsic motivation. What is the purpose? And make it an emotion driven goal. One way to be able to do this easily is write down your why, put it somewhere visible on your phone wallpaper, on a sticky note, in your journal, on your calendar. I'm going to get this done because of XYZ. And that should be your why. So, coming back to my book, my why is I want to get this book out to the world. I think that my feedback model could really help people and make an impact. So, it's really exciting for me to be able to share everything that I've learned about giving feedback with all of you. And if I don't finish it, then the book isn't going to get done and it's not going to go out and hopefully help somebody who is looking for better ways to be able to have difficult conversations. That's my why. I just have to have that front and center. In fact, I'm going to write it on a sticky note and put it right here on my computer until I get the dang thing done. So that's a tip. Dig for the why, build emotional driven goals. The third concept is the micro win stack, and that is how you celebrate tiny victories. The concept is that progress, no matter how small, builds momentum, as we talked about earlier. I love how James Clear, who is the author of Atomic Habits, explains it. And he says that stacking small wins creates an identity shift. You become the kind of person who takes action. So, what kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be a person who takes action, or do you want to be a person who stays stuck? Do you want to be a person who achieves your goals, or do you want to be a person who doesn't? You have to take actions and you have to celebrate those wins. So, for me, I want to be a person who has multiple books. That means I have to write multiple books. I want to be a leader who inspires action, who puts people first. So I have to take action to be that kind of leader. And every time I make progress, I can celebrate those small victories. I talked about this in a podcast. I talked about it in my book, The Ownership Mindset, too, about micro achievements. Several years ago, I was working with my coach at the time, Chris Larkins. Hi, Chris. I love you. And I was telling him how I didn't feel that I was working on my big goals, on the things that I needed to work on to move the company forward because I was getting sucked into fighting fires in the day to day. And so he said, hey, let's create micro achievements. So we took the big goals, we broke them down. They said, okay, what do you need to get done this week to move those forward? So I'd write those down. And then I would break them into things that I needed to do each day. So I keep track of all of this in Asana and I create the one or two, maybe three max micro achievements that I need to get done in a given day to move the ball forward. And in Asana, when you click the check button to say it's done, you get a little celebratory rainbow and unicorn flying off, and it feels so good. And I love this because you can go back and look at all of the different things that you got done. You don't have to use a project management tool like Asana. You can literally write it down on a sticky note. But the point of it is that it helps you stay focused on what you need to get done, taking action, and it allows you to celebrate, yes, I got this done. And that feels good. And you should pat yourself on the back for getting that done. Celebrate it because you are becoming the kind of person who takes action. To bring this back to dopamine, I think I'm going to probably talk about this in every podcast, but it is so important to understanding so that you stay motivated to get things done in a healthy way. I want to talk about the progress principle. And that is a principle coined by Harvard researchers that shows when you take small actions and you feel good about those, you celebrate those wins, it releases dopamine. And when you release dopamine, especially when you work for it in a healthy way, it reinforces that habit of action. Of course, it can reinforce habits of action that are also negative. But when you are trying to move forward in a goal, you're making progress, you get that little dopamine hit and it continues to reinforce that behavior. So that feel good feeling comes from the dopamine release of taking action and getting these small little micro wins. So start your day by writing down your three tiny goals, those three micro achievements, achieve them, celebrate, and then rinse and repeat. I promise you it works. You will be amazed at what you get done and you will feel so much better about it. I get it. You're not always going to feel like doing the things you don't want to do, but action is the ultimate motivator. You will not regret showing up, even if you don't feel like it at first. And as the very wise Mark Twain said, the secret to getting ahead is getting started. So, my call to action to you today is to think about one thing that you've been putting off that you can commit to doing for just 5 minutes and do it. Write that down, make it happen right now. Just do it right now, or at the very least, no later than tomorrow. If you think this podcast would be helpful to somebody who you know is struggling taking action and not feeling motivated, please share it with them. And of course, if you like this podcast overall, I encourage you to subscribe to it on your favorite podcast platform on YouTube. I so appreciate it. It helps get the word out. Share this, tag me in social media, send me a message. I'd love to hear your wins. And if you like this podcast and want more tips, please get my book, The Ownership Mindset. You can go buy it at your local bookstore. You can, of course, get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, anywhere you buy your books. With that, I will leave you for your day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.